it goes to the state. I've never experienced anything like this, and since I'm 69 years old. I will tell you that looking, and I'll get into my speech here in just a second, but looking at you all is pretty typical about what I'm seeing all over the state. Older people. I'm 69. So it's mostly the older people that knew what it was like to have freedom when they were raised back in the 50s and 60s.
Speak a little louder,
And,
please.
pardon me?
Speak a little louder.
So being raised back in the 50s and 60s, and you had very little interaction with the state or the federal government because they wasn't in your business all the time. And but I've got some good news. The other flip of that coin is a lot of the younger people, the early 20s, just out of high school type individuals, seem to be more aware of the Constitution. It seems to be our children. Our children and their children seems to be the problem. And somewhere along the line during the 70s and 80s and 90s, they lost touch with their country. They lost touch with what was right and what was wrong.
Teachers.
It's education. It's since the No Child Left Behind and things like that. But since Jimmy Carter put in the Department of Education in 79 or 78, and that's where it already began. But anyway, my name is Clinton Wesley Morgan, and I live in Richmond. I lived in Richmond for 37 years. I'm from Wesley County. I'm from a little town called Hyden, which is located between Hazard and Manchester on the Daniel Boone Parkway. We still refuse to call it the Hal Ruther Parkway. It's the Daniel Boone Parkway. And I was raised there. I was raised, I got 4 sisters, and I was raised poor. But I come from a family, and if y'all remember when they used to have commodities, you remember that? We qualified for commodities, but I come from a family where my father said, we will never accept anything free from the government because the government will never have to raise my family. That's how we were raised. You don't see any of that today. But I graduated from high school, and then I went to Cumberland College on a National Defense Student Loan back when the Vietnam War was just cranking up. And I got a degree in history and political science. I was going to go to law school, changed my mind. I went to Eastern Kentucky University for 3 additional semesters and got a BBA degree in accounting. And since I got that accounting degree, I never looked back. Once that I graduated with the accounting degree, I went to work for the United States Treasury Department. I worked for the United States Treasury Department for 8 years. During that time that I worked for the United States Treasury Department, I was on the protection detail of Vice President Walter Mondale, when he was Vice President of the United States in 1980. I was on Teddy Kennedy's protection detail when he ran for president in 1980. And I was on John Anderson's protection detail for a while when he was running on the third party for President of the United States. My father got ill, wanted me to come home, very sick. It sounds odd today, but he said, Wes, I know you love your job, but if you don't come back home and get some roots, you'll wake up one morning 40 years old, and you still won't even know where you even belong. Now, that's odd since I'm 69, and he was talking about being 40. But I did some thought on that, and I resigned and came back to Kentucky, and my father died of a massive heart attack 6 weeks after I got back. Thank God he come back. And then I went in business for myself. And I went into the alcohol business. My father and mother were in the alcohol business, and that's what I went into. And I spent the next few years building a retail business that was the second highest volume store in the state of Kentucky, second only to the Party Source store across from the 471 bridge here in Cincinnati. That is the #1 store in the state of Kentucky, is the Party Source. I was #2. So I built that, During the course of the time that I was building that business, I developed a software that's being used in about 500 different retail locations now. In 2017, I was the National Retailer of the Year. But before I get into that, I basically spent my time, just like all of you all do, raising a family, trying to make a living, and not paying too much attention to the politics other than going and voting Republican every primary and every general election. And then one day, Barack Obama got elected President of the United States, and I said, oh my Lord, we are in deep, deep problems. And so I decided at that point that I should get more involved, and I started off because I'm just a country hillbilly from eastern Kentucky, and I never dreamed about getting up in front of people and speaking. And when I first started, I was very, very nervous. So it wasn't something that I looked to get into personally myself into politics, but I started backing candidates. I was Rand Paul's first max donor, and I started giving money to who I consider to be conservative Republicans. In fact, when Thomas Massey ran up here, Rand Paul called me and he said, hey, how about backing Thomas Massey? I said, okay. I came up, went to a fundraiser, gave him money, and helped him win his first race. But for the most part, when I was supporting these people, I looked around and they were going into office, and rather than things changing, they just blended in with the rest of them. Most of them did, not Thomas, but most of them did. And then I said, well, this is not working. So I started thinking about, well, am I going to run? Now, you got to remember, at this time, I was about 64 years old, and so I'd already pretty much had a long life, and I didn't think too much about changing for what I was doing. So I was leaving church one day, and a couple of people came up to me, and they said, what about running for state representative? They can't find anybody to run against Rita Smart in the 81st District, and the Democrats have held it for 48 years, held that office. And so I thought about it, and I said, well, I'll give it a try. So I took and filed, didn't know a thing about what I was doing. The Republican Party didn't help me at all. Raised very little money, ran the race. I lost, but I got 42% of the vote in a district that had 18,000 registered Democrats and 12,000 registered Republicans. I looked around, I looked at my wife, and I said, we can win this race. I said, I would never believed it, but if a nobody like me, no one knew who I was, can get 42% of the vote, these people want to change. So, even though I run, I'm a constitutional conservative. I believe in the strict interpretation of the Constitution. Most of the politicians do not like that. They do not want that type of individual coming to Frankfort or going to Washington. So the Republican Party of Kentucky decided that I got way too close at 42%, so they're going to get somebody there. They went and recruited someone to primary me in 2016. And so I ran against a person in 2016 primary, and I beat him. And then I came back and I won the district in November of 2016 for the first time in 50 years of the Republican going to the State House as a state representative from District 81 in Madison County. Well, obviously I was elated about that. I thought everybody else was too, but I'm an independent person, so when I was sworn in on January the 2nd of 2017, on January the 14th, 2 weeks later, these news articles start coming out in the newspaper. State representative from Richmond, Wesley, Morgan, files self-serving liquor bills. State Representative Wesley Morgan didn't pay property taxes on his house boat. I actually had a chief of police in Knox County, where I had a store. I had 4 stores at the time. Gave me a ticket for violating a law, transporting alcohol beverages in a dry auction territory, that had been declared unconstitutional 2 years before, in 2015. Now think about this. Then we have a person who goes into my store in Barberville, applies for a job, doesn't get hired, and then he sues me. I say, well, what in the world is going on here? And he sues me for discriminating against the military because he was in the military reserve. Well, we always take applications the 1st of December. We don't normally hire people on the spot. We normally hire them when we get vacancies, and we take them in early December so that so we have people ready to call in case a job vacancy comes open. So I hire some lawyers in Manchester to help me, and they call me and they go, he was wired. Do you know of anybody who puts a wire on and goes in and applies for a job? Do you know anyone who does that? Anyone? So they say to me and say, well, he'll settle if you'll give him $1,500. And I said, well, I can't settle. I can't settle. And he says, well, it's going to cost you $10,000 to try it. I said, then I'll just have to pay $10,000 because what they're trying to do is they're trying to hang me with me violating somehow the military statute so they can use it against me because they're that afraid of what's going on. I was astounded. I was also audited for 4 years. This is all because I was a constitutionalist. And because when I went to Frankfurt, they said that I had to vote the way they wanted me to vote. I said, I ain't going to do it. I'll vote the way that I'll represent my district, and I'll vote for what's right, and I won't vote for what's wrong. I didn't like that. But I didn't even know what was going on until it went on, and then in October of 2017, Jeff Hoover got caught up in this sexual harassment thing, sexual harassing these young little intern girls there at the Capitol. And when he did, some of the girls out of the communications department where this girl worked came to me and said, please help us. You're the only person that we trust. Please help us. And this is when Daisy Olivo, with the head of the communications department, she said, Wesley, you don't know this. She said that Jeff Hoover is the one who is putting all that information out to the news media. If you go on Facebook, if you go on YouTube and you look up Nancy Pelosi, how you do a wrap-up smear, look that up. And this is how they do it. If there's someone they want rid of, someone like you don't even realize it's your speaker, who's been there for 20 years, knows a bunch of these reporters, and they'll call somebody like Tom Loftus at the Courier Journal, and they'll say, Wesley Morgan filed these self-serving liquor bills. And then they write this big article and put it in the paper, and then they use that article to impeach you. This is what they did to me. Well, they came to me and said, we're gonna cover up this thing about this sexual harassment that Speaker Hoover is accused of. I said, not me. Not me. I said, I take an oath. And there's 3 things that I guarantee all of you all, that I'll never, ever betray my country. I will never, ever take a bribe. And I will never cover up for a crime that somebody else committed. I will never do that. And I refuse to cover up his crime. And you know what I got for that? Jeff Hoover got his wife to handpick a person in Richmond who, they went to school together at EKU. And the Republican Party of Kentucky fully funded my candidate. They had never put money into that race before. Fully funded her, and I lost by 350 votes in my re-election bid. This is what you're dealing with, people. And what you're dealing with, and I know that you all have had to have heard this in the past. You have had to have heard. Why is it every time we elect someone and we send them up there to do the things they say they're going to do for us and they won't do them? The reason is because it's rigged. And when you go up there and you walk in that room and they shut those doors, they go, Now you're a part of these people here, and we're all for each other. And they got, of course, the main cog in this is Mitch McConnell. He's the ringleader. And then in that particular situation, it was McConnell, it was Hoover, and then Jonathan Shell. And I thought Jonathan Shell was a good conservative young man. I gave him several $1,000s when he ran for his race. Bad person. So this is what's going on. So I want you to understand why you can't get representation when people run and you want to. This is the reason they hate Thomas. Because Thomas will not vote along with them. He won't do it. Now he's spinning his wheels, but he ain't getting nowhere because most of them do it. But he is protecting you the best of his ability that he has to protect you. So anyway, to give you an example about those self-serving liquor bills. My self-serving liquor bills was this. We had a large corporation called Southern Wine and Spirits out of Miami, who, by the way, the fifth richest man in the world, Wayne Chapman, owns, and a company out of Atlanta called Republic National. We had them come into our state and buy all of our wholesalers. They bought all of them. So they go to Maker's Mark, or to Jim Beam, or these others, and they make contracts to become exclusive of that brand. And they become exclusives of that brand so that they can create a monopoly on it, and the price is tripled. And they just keep shipping that money out of Kentucky and sending it to Florida, while people, just common folk who work every day, pays 3 times for something. And I don't care whether you drink or don't drink or whatever, but if you just buy 1 bottle a year, and that's a bottle of champagne for New Year's Eve, you shouldn't pay 3 times what you should be paying for it. But they contribute to the party leadership. Whether it's Republican or Democrat, it's both. And they contribute to that party leadership, so the party takes care of them. And this is the way it is with all of them. Pharmaceuticals. That's the reason why your prescriptions are so high. Because they allow them to do large pricing on the things, the necessities of your life. And then they get kickback, they get the contributions. It's a never-ending circle. I don't know how we're going to change it, but what I'm just told you is the truth. Now, let me tell you what I was going to tell you, that by me filing those bills, that even though the Courier-Journal said it was self-serving, I was called by the National Association of Alcohol Retailers, the National Association, and said, we like what you're doing. The National Association of Alcohol Regulators is all the ABCs all across the country, the people who actually administer the laws and all this stuff. So we like what you're doing. Would you come speak to us in Denver, Colorado? We'll pay your way. And I did. I flew out to Denver, Colorado and spoke to their convention and got a very good reception out there. But to hear it from the Courier-Journal, it was something nefarious, which is horrible. So I did what I thought was right. They came to me and they said, well, the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce wants us to pass a law that prohibits someone from drawing workman's compensation who has been totally disabled. We cut them off for 15 years. And I go, I can't do that. If someone is totally disabled and cannot work, I can't cut them off. That would be what we're going to do. Set them out in the ditch line. So I voted against them, and they lost. Because I voted with the Democrats on that, and we. When they brought us into the room and said that we were going to raise the sales tax on appliance repairs and automobile repairs, I said, number one, I said, I'm never going to vote for a tax because I believe the tax to death now. But I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I said, I will break that rule and I will vote for a tax increase if you put it on lawyers and accountants. And they said, hell no, we will not put it on lawyers. That's what they said. So they
I
put it
didn't
on.
even know lawyers weren't taxed.
Well, they don't have, we don't collect sales tax on lawyer fees. Because we have to go after only those people who can least afford it. Only those ones that don't have high dollar lobbyists taking care of them and donating like big sums of money to the politicians. But anyway, that's my background. Let me tell you what I stand for, and then we'll get into McConnell's rhetoric. I stand for faith, family, and country. I believe that we should be free to worship Jesus Christ without persecution. I believe that we should be free to protect the life of the unborn and express our belief that abortion is morally wrong. They've got this jerk in Virginia right now that's wanting to have a baby born, console it while it's laying there, and then decides we're going to stick a knife through its heart. Murder. Absolute murder. I believe we should be free to educate our children without government indoctrination. And that's what we talked about a while ago when the federal government got involved with the Department of Education. The Department of Education needs to be abolished. I will do everything I can to abolish it. Free to protect our family from all threats without fear of being imprisoned for possessing a firearm. Ladies and gentlemen, if you take your Second Amendment rights, you might as well take the rest of the Constitution and throw it in the garbage can, because it will not be worth anything. And if we allow it, which I don't think we will, if we allow that to happen, we're in major trouble anyway. But they disarm us. If you go look at Joseph Stalin, you go look at Mao Zedong, you go look at any one of these totalitarian governments, and every time they disarm the citizens, the next thing that happens is they start killing the citizens. It happens every single time. And that's what they're trying to do now. So they're going to have to take a bunch of us over their bodies, because we absolutely will not sit still and allow this to happen. Now, let me tell you how smart our president is. Mitch McConnell acts like President Trump's for him. He's not for him. He trapped him during the summer if we paid any attention to it at all. The president came out and said, well, you know, maybe I could be open to some red flag laws. Mitch McConnell immediately jumped on it and said, hey, we're going to have hearings in the United States Senate on red flag laws. And then the president said, no, I don't think I'm for that. So he trapped him. He trapped him after he made the commitment to have the hearings. And Mitch McConnell's approval rating went right to the floor. And guess what they did? Just as sure as I'm standing on this concrete floor, Mitch McConnell got the House of Representatives to hold hearings on red flag laws, which is controlled by Republicans, in order to take the heat off of Mitch and put it over onto the House of Representatives. I'm telling you, that's what he did. He did that. I think you should be free to enjoy the fruits of your labor without being taxed to death. And you know every single one of us is taxed absolutely to death. And if you work for a W-2, you only take home what? 57% of it? And then once you get that 57% home, they tax you on everything you spend it on. All you're trying to do, all most people are trying to do, is make 2 car payments, a house payment. They're trying to put clothes on the kids' back and food in their stomach. And God forbid, they're trying to save a little bit so they can send them to college. And it's impossible anymore the way that they're taxing us. There's a spending problem. There's not a revenue problem. And every time they turn around, they're talking about now putting 10 more cents on a gallon of gasoline. But they just need to cut out all these things that they're spending on that they shouldn't be spending on. You should also be free to obtain affordable health care. All we need to do is just get the government out of the way, open it up to the free market, and then let them cross state lines and buy health care where you can get it. I had the best health care ever was until Barack Obama came along and destroyed it. Now you got to pay $1,000 a month plus $8,000 out of your pocket before you ever get the first thing. It's ridiculous. Free to choose your representatives without being handpicked by party elites. That's going on right now. Handpicked by party elites. Free to express your opinion without fear of reprisal or censorship. You know we're all being censored in social media and all that stuff. Free to be treated fairly and prosper in peace and safety. That is the primary responsibility of your government, is to make sure that you prosper in safety. Whether it's the federal government that provides for the common defense or the state that provides for the policing and the judicial system. Free to have news media that does not promote untruth and propaganda. You know that's not going on right now. Now I'm going to tell you how we got there. Mitch McConnell is not a conservative. Conservative Review gives Rand Paul a 92% grade on conservatism, but he only gives Mitch McConnell a 36%. Mitch McConnell right now is so unpopular in the state of Kentucky, and he only has a 33% approval rating across the board with everybody across the state. And he's only 50% approval rating among Republicans in the state of Kentucky. Now, to be credible as a United States Senate candidate against a 35-year United States Senator, I've got to prove a couple things to you. I've got to prove, number one, that it is not to your benefit for Mitch McConnell to be the Senate Majority Leader in Washington, D.C. I also have to prove to you that this game that he's playing with conservative judges is not necessarily what he's doing in your best interest. And I've got to prove those two things to you. So I'll start with the Senate Majority Leader. Anybody ever heard of the Smith-Mundt Act? Anybody ever heard of it? 1948, the national law called the Smith-Mundt Act. What that law did is it prohibited propaganda from being used in the news media in the United States. That's the reason why we didn't have any lying going on for the most part for all these years in the news media. Well, in 2012, Mitch McConnell and Harry Reid slipped into the 2013 National Defense Authorization Act, the Smith-Mundt modernization bill. You know what it did? U.S. repeals propaganda ban spreads government-made news to Americans. This is where your fake news come from. This is the reason why that you can't get the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, to do anything about all this fake news that's going on. This is the reason.
What year did he do that, Wesley?
Pardon me?
What year did he do that?
In 2012, and it slipped it into the 2013 National Defense Authorization Act. Now, let's talk about when President Trump got elected. President Trump got elected in November the 8th of 2016. Well, guess what Mitch done? He's your Senate Majority Leader. He slipped in that December, the president just got elected November the 8th, 2016. In December of 2016, he slipped into the 2017 National Defense Authorization Act, House Bill 5181, a bill co-sponsored by Ted Lieu, the most liberal congressman from New York, who co-sponsored this bill called Countering Foreign Disinformation and Propaganda Act. Let me tell you what it did. It created a $160 million slush fund to be used by the Broadcasting Board of Governors to censor conservative content in the social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. This is our senator who did this. This is our senator. He also busted up the Board of Governors, and he took, it was 4 Republicans and 4 Democrats, and the Secretary of State was the 9th member of this board that governs all the news media and all the social media. And he changes that to one director that is to be appointed by the President of the United States. Well, guess what? The one that we have currently was appointed by Barack Obama. The President, Trump, has submitted that man, his nominee for that position. And 3 years now into his term of office, Mitch McConnell still has not allowed him to be confirmed as the director of the Board of Governors. After 3 years, still ain't done it. Then he goes, everywhere he goes, and I've seen him speak, he talks about the judges, how he's doing all these conservative judges. Well, I'll give him credit. He is doing some of them now because it's election year. If it was the first or the fifth, through the fifth year of his term, we wouldn't get any of them. But let me tell you how you know what a sham it is. I'll just take August as one example of many. This past August 2019. August 2019, the Senate recesses for 1 month. And every one of them leave and come home. Mitch McConnell leaves a man in the United States Senate to gavel in every morning and gavel out every evening. You know why? They keep the president from doing recess appointments. He would have appointed every single one of those judges on recess appointment. He would have appointed every single one of his ambassadors, and he would have appointed his man as director of the Broadcasting Board of Governors. But now, since it's his election year, he wants to start putting some of these judges through. Where was he at for 2 years? Where was he at for 17 and 18? And most of 19? Where was their judges? It's all a sham, people. It's a sham. Let me tell you what else he did to you. In 2014, he took and slipped into the appropriations bill and changed those campaign finance laws. Up until that point, you could donate $32,000, one individual could donate $32,400 to a political party or a committee of a party, you know, the Republican Senatorial Re-election Committee. So they could donate $32,400. Mitch put an amendment into the spending bill that changed that from $32,400 to $324,000 that one rich person can donate. This is where you have what I'm sure you've heard of dark money. Have you heard of dark money? This is dark money. This is the same money that Mitch McConnell used to try, well, he actually made him look like it, but he wasn't. Chris McDaniel, a very good conservative from Mississippi, ran for the United States Senate, and he lost because Mitch McConnell and his gang came in with all this money and started running ads that Chris McDaniel was a racist. Then look what he done to Judge Roy Moore, a man who was the Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court, who refused to remove the 10 Commandments from the State House. And because he refused to do that, he was removed as Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court. And he turned around and ran and won it again and was reinstalled by the people as the Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court. What does Mitch McConnell do with his dark money? He makes the man look like a pedophile. This is where all this is coming from. Every bit of this is coming from our Senator, Mitch McConnell. The man is literally destroying our nation and our state. It's pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. Just the other day, our president wanted to nominate John Ratcliffe, a congressman from Texas, as the Defense Intelligence, Director of National Intelligence, as Director of National Intelligence. And he had to withdraw his nomination. You know why? Because Mitch McConnell and Richard Burr being the chairman of the Intelligence Committee in the Senate, refused to allow John Ratcliffe to be confirmed as the president's pick to be the Director of National Intelligence. You know why? Because they wanted control of the intelligence, and they did not want the president to be able to disclose what all was going on in his FISA reports and all that stuff. It's something else, people. Let's talk about guns for a second. you know who runs Washington, D.C.? Do you know who has authority over Washington, D.C.? It's the United States Congress. Do you know the only place in the United States that you better not get caught with a gun, even though the Supreme Court has ruled in the Heller case that they absolutely have the right of the Second Amendment in Washington, D.C.? Mitch McConnell and the Speaker of the House determine how the laws are enforced in Washington, D.C. And they have people in Washington, D.C. are being denied their Second Amendment rights. And that's what our Senate Majority Leader, the great Mitch McConnell from Kentucky, is denying people their Second Amendment rights. Think about that. Let's talk about abortion just for a second. Rand Paul said the other day, and you can look this up on YouTube if you want to look it up. He gets up at the Faith Forum in D.C. and he speaks. And he says, I went to a high member of the Senate leadership. Now, he didn't mention a name, but we all know who he's talking about. High member of the Senate leadership. And he says, I want to file an amendment to defund Planned Parenthood. And he says, this high member of Senate leadership looks at him and says, well, you can't do that. And he says, why? He said, because you might win. Look it up, people. You can look it up on Google and find it. You can find it. This is what our senator is doing. He acts like he's a pro-life. He's not pro-life. In fact, he's voted several times to allow abortion. But they don't want to stop that defunding Planned Parenthood money. And they don't want to stop that foreign aid money. You know why? Because it circles around and comes back to them in campaign contributions to their family. Because you, if you're a politician, you can't accept foreign donation, but your family can because it doesn't prohibit it. That's how Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, that's how they got all this money routed into Hunter Biden. Well, guess who else we got doing that? We have a person by the name of Elaine Chao. You ever see the book Secret Empires? Peter Schweitzer, you ever see that? There's an entire chapter dedicated on Elaine Chao and Mitch McConnell. And supposedly, they're great business people. And they think all their ships are built in Red China. All the ships were financed with the Bank of Red China, which Elaine's sister is on the board of directors of the Bank of Red China. And they take these ships, and then of course Mitch, he goes along with Obama, outlaws all the coal production in Kentucky, shuts down eastern Kentucky, and then guess what they do? They go down to Colombia, and now Colombia is producing 2.5 times the coal that was produced in Kentucky to China. And guess whose ships are taking that coal over there? Do I have to tell you? It's the Chow family. And just as a matter of just appreciation for being a great daughter, James Chow gives him $24 million. Think about this. Mitch McConnell was worth less than $1 million. His net worth was less than $1 million when he became senator. Let's not get this wrong. I voted for Mitch McConnell every single time except one time I voted for Matt Bevin in 2014. Every other time I voted for him. But I didn't know all this. I didn't know all this was going on. So this is what this guy is doing to us now. He's going around lying his tail off about everything I've just talked about. But they're trying to shut me up because they know I've got proof. I got his voting record. We researched it from top to bottom. We got his voting record and we know what he's done. So, one more thing I want to show you. Going back to that dark money, with those contributions from 132.4 to 324,000. Senate GOP declares war on conservative troublemakers. The party's campaign arm vows to blackball any firm that works for a primary challenger against one of their incumbents. All that's doing is disenfranchising you.
Read that again.
Senate GOP declares war on conservative troublemakers. The party's campaign arm vows to blackball any firm that works for a primary challenger against one of their incumbents. So I went to Washington, D.C. I went to Washington, D.C. and said, I'd like to hire you to help me raise money. I'm running against Mitch McConnell. Wesley, we would love to. There's nothing we would rather see than Mitch McConnell be removed. But if I help you raise money, I lose all my other contracts. So I can't help you. And that's how they stay in power, and they hand-pick each other, and this is what they do. There's other things I could talk about, but I'm going to leave it. Well, one more thing. I'll talk about immigration. Never done a thing against immigration when he was Senate Majority Leader. And Paul Ryan was the Speaker of the House. All they had to do was fix immigration right then and there. They refused to do it. And they want we give $4.5 billion to take care of people who's crossing our border, and we got veterans on the street. It's beyond anything that I have ever witnessed. And when I show it to some people, especially real strong McConnell supporters, I don't care what he did. I don't care what he did. He took and would not let Merrick Garland become a judge. That's what they say. I said, you don't care that he voted against the Second Amendment 6 times? No. Ridiculous. Let me give you a brief. This is in your packet. He voted against the Second Amendment 6 times. He voted against the Fourth Amendment for making the Patriot Act permanent, which authorizes unprecedented surveillance powers to the federal government. And he has stated the Patriot Act is one of the most important and overdue pieces of legislation in a generation, and declared it did not go far enough. And did you hear what that state senator in Virginia said the other day? When they warned those people coming in about protesting against the Second Amendment? If you so much, after they declare you to be a domestic terrorist, you can be taken off the street under the Patriot Act and incarcerated forever without even a trial. That's what can be done. You know, we used to have habeas corpus in this country. They had to produce you, and they had to prove that you were guilty of something. By voting while Senate Minority Leader for the repeal of the Smith-Mott Act that prohibited the use of government propaganda in the American news media, by voting 4 times to fund abortion, he voted 4 times to fund abortion. He voted to confirm Ruth Bader Ginsburg to the United States Supreme Court. The biggest liberal ever. Now listen, guys, if I'm a conservative and I go to the United States Senate, it's a foregone conclusion. I'm not voting for no liberal to be a judge. It ain't no guessing game. It ain't gonna happen. He voted for the North American Free Trade Act, NAFTA, and the Central American Free Trade Act, and the World Trade Organization, which, by the way, the World Trade Organization, when China wanted to become a most favored trading nation in around the early 1990s, guess what happened? A woman by the name of Lang Chow, a Chinese person, shows up and starts flirting around with Mitch and breaks up his family. Mitch divorces his wife, leaves his kids, and she marries Mitch. And what happens to China and the most favored nations? Trading partner. They get it. They get it. He voted for $700 billion bailout of Wall Street and declared, quote, the Senate at its finest. The Senate at its finest. And he voted against the audit of the Fed, an organization that is not even federal, that is nothing but a bunch of fat cat bankers that are taking and creating money, lending it to our government, and then they're getting the interest for it. That'd be like Jan saying, Wes, I need $100,000. I'll go, just a minute, I'll go over here and write off the press, just create it, give it to her and say, now you owe me 2% interest on that. You got to pay me every year 2% interest on it. Then I just print it. This is what's going on with our country. And if something doesn't happen, put it in there again. I really believe that he's got a chance that he gets speak this time if he gets a nomination. By voting, he voted in 2001 for the No Child Left Behind and created unprecedented involvement in education. He voted in 2013 to end debate and allow Harry Reid to fund Obamacare strictly on a party line vote. Now he'll tell you he didn't vote for that, but he did. He voted for the cloture. You know what cloture is? It's the filibuster rule. You've got to have 60 votes to end debate and vote on a bill. And Mitch voted to end the debate on cloture and then voted against the funding of it, act like he was against it, when he knew they already had 51 votes to pass it. It's just like taking 3 shells here and putting a pea under it and then start switching it around. That's exactly what's being done. He voted in 2011 and 2012 to not allow access to low-cost prescription drugs from Canada. Because, if you all know this, the pharmaceutical companies are funding him big-time contribution. And they can because they're ripping all us off. Voted in 2014 to disenfranchise, I already talked about that. Then I talked about slipped into the 2017 National Defense. And then by voting for the Clean Air Act to kill coal production in Kentucky, and of course we know that's coming now from Columbia. So that is the things that Mitch McConnell has done. I rest my case. If I was a prosecutor, I would absolutely get a guilty from a jury. This is what this man has done. I'll be happy to take any question.
What have you done as far as constitutional convention?
What have I done for the
In
convention
other words,
state?
you stop people like Mr. McConnell by term limits. Okay?
Let me tell you about you're talking about Article 5 of the Constitution, and you're talking about convention of states,
States
right?
convention to pass
Convention of states.
to the Constitution.
Now, I have a lot of people that are for the convention of states that are for my campaign. I will tell you straight up that I'm worried about that, and I'll tell you why. Because the Constitution says we can do an Article 5 convention, but it doesn't put limits. And I'm afraid that a Constitution, which I think we may have to do, it may be the last resort, and we have to do it no matter what. But I am scared to death that the first thing they go after is the Second Amendment.
Yes.
Yeah, we can't have it.
And if they go after the Second Amendment, we lose it all. So I agree that something's got to be done, and I agree that we may have to take that risk. Because it's not the people anyway, it's the legislatures that has the power. And of course, you still got to ratify it by 3/4 of the states. To pass it, just like if it was passed in Congress and then brought to the states, it still would have to be ratified by 34. But do we really want to put something that's important